welcome everyone to the Women's Empowered Network. I'm very excited to have Leah here with us this morning. And you were just telling me it's what time there?
It is 5 o'clock in the morning here.
And,
I'm really grateful to be here.
well, thank you. And where is it that you're at?
I'm in Malaysia.
Well, we'll get to, go ahead.
So I'm originally from Canada, but I've been living here in Malaysia for the last 10 years.
Well, we'll circle back around to this to see how this came about if it doesn't come up in our conversation.
Okay.
So if you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit about who you are and your story and journey that led you to what you're passionate about today.
Sure. I was really a people pleaser my whole life. And it got me into some trouble when I was a teenager. Always looking for love. And I ended up really with the wrong crowd. And so I ended up at the age of 19 living on the streets and doing some drugs and, really, really the wrong kind of crowd. And that led me to my first ever personal growth seminar. So I was around 21 years old by the time that I got myself off of the street and off of the drugs and then into a personal growth seminar. And I actually went there pretty close-minded, to be honest, at that time. But it didn't take long. Like literally within the first 10 minutes, the facilitator walked in, introduced himself, and he had us do an exercise where he asked us to stand up on our chairs. And this made me, the point of the exercise was to see things from a different perspective. And this hit me really hard, really fast. And for the rest of the 4 days, I was a sponge, soaking up everything, knew that this was totally meant for me. And so for the last almost 30 years, I have been on this journey of self-discovery, self-awareness, and personal growth. And so that is what I'm truly passionate about. And what I'm even more passionate about specifically is helping women with their rediscovering their self-worth. And because actually I believe that it's, you're born with it, and then rediscovering who they really truly are. So that's what I'm most passionate about.
It's kind of interesting, isn't it? Because we're, you say we're born with it, but then somehow society, we're conditioned out of it.
Yeah.
Just to make the journey back to it.
That's right. That's right. And I do think it's society, but there's a whole lot of nonsense that goes on up here, right? Which is probably due to society, but we tend to take what happens up here as truth when it's really not, right? All those self-doubts, imposter, fear, the negative stuff that goes on in our minds, right?
Oh,
So
yeah, it's not exclusive to anyone.
that's right.
We
That's
all,
right.
I don't care if you're Oprah Winfrey or Taylor Swift, or Jini
We
or
all have
Leah.
it.
We
Yeah.
all, isn't it true?
Yeah.
But what makes the difference? What made the difference to you? How did the shift come about? I mean, you signed up and you went to your first self-help program.
What really made the difference for me is just really to start seeing, it was a long, slow process. I mean, it's an ongoing process, to be honest, right? It's a never-ending journey, right? But it was the fact that I'm able to make the choices in my life. I'm responsible for my life. I get to design the life that I want to live. I get to be, step into my truth, my power. I don't need to worry about what other people are thinking, or I don't need to worry what they're thinking about me. It's all about what I think about me, right? And it's all about my relationship connection to my higher self.
That's beautiful. So you went from other pleasing to self-pleasing.
Yes, yes. And that was, of course, the most important thing, because I was so busy trying to be everything that I thought everyone else wanted me to be. So I was never really being me. And so therefore I was rejecting myself in the process, right? And so my self-worth, my self-esteem was just being damaged day in, day out with the many masks that I was wearing, without realizing that that's what I was doing to myself, right?
Well, we trust the people around us, and we're influenced by them. We don't, it's like we don't know what we don't know.
Yeah, and especially when it's your, for example, teachers, parents, those kind of people that are, they should know what's best for you, right? And they certainly don't mean any harm. I don't believe that they mean any harm, right?
Right.
But we do have to learn eventually to listen to our own heart, because I do believe that we're all here for a specific reason and a specific purpose. And how could anybody else know that, what it is? We have to learn from within ourselves and listen to that voice that is saying, this is who you are. This is what you're meant to do, right? So
It's learning to trust yourself, isn't it?
yes, yes.
It is. I've seen it. I see it. I even, see it with young, especially young women who, they want to be good. They want to be better, but then they're in a institution or an organization that's telling them on the outside how they should be, what makes them a good woman, and being subservient or all different kinds of things that just make my toes curl, like, oh,
Yeah, well, especially as women, we have these roles that we're supposed to play. And I think we get sometimes lost in the role. But just the simple word, a role, is kind of like, you're showing up as an actress. You, so we need to be very aware of, we can do what we need to do and still be our authentic self.
Very much. It took me a really long time to figure that out, because I had someone in my life who had very strong ideas of who and what and how I should be. And I was 180 opposite that in my true nature of who I was, and so I get it. I get it. So it almost masks, like if it's heavily influenced around you, it's hard to even know who that authentic self is and your purpose in your role.
I agree that it does get quite lost, because what happens is that I feel that we just push it down each time it tries to bubble up, or each small little voice, that intuition voice that comes up, we're like, no, no. And we don't uh let it come out to play. We don't, because it wouldn't be right, or I'll be in trouble, like when you're young, right? You just feel like, oh, I'm going to be in trouble
Or you'll be rejected, where
I
you were talking
if I
about you were pleasing others for love. And so if you're rejected,
that's
oh my God, that's the end of the world.
yeah, 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 yeah. And I think that over time, through doing the inner work, that we come to realize that people will love you even more, or you will be able to receive the love even more when you are showing up as your authentic self. And those people that do reject you, it doesn't even affect you anymore, because you already feel strong, and there's already enough love within, and also enough love for your authentic self from others, that the few that may reject you, that's okay. You can't please everybody. You can't love everybody. Not everybody's going to love you, is what I meant. Yeah. So that's okay.
I
And
understood. Well, it just, they did you a favor. They do you a favor by leaving your life, because they're, and I always think everybody is the mirror. And when somebody's like that, I think, well, they're not loving themselves. So they
yeah,
needed you to play a certain role for them so that they could, so they were struggling to experience love.
I one of the people that I love is Jamie Kern Lima, and she
Yep. Where I got her
reminded
book on my end table.
yeah, and she reminded me that rejection is just God's protection, and I
It,
love that. I love that. Yeah.
That's
So
funny. I was just taking a little lunch break before we came online, and I was thinking that very exact thing, and
yeah.
I was trying to remember what that phrase was. So thank you.
Yeah. Rejection is just God's protection. It's a wonderful reframe, and I carry it with me in my back pocket all the time. I don't worry about it. And you're right that sometimes, not sometimes, actually all the time, everything that happens is always a reflection. It's always a mirror and or projection, right? So
Right.
um
Yeah. I mean,
that can happen to both good and bad.
well, it does. I mean, for an example, 2 weeks before my mother passed away, this is several years ago now, out of the blue, she asked me, she says, honey, she says, do you like yourself? And of course, I've spent a lifetime with self-help and personal growth and spiritual growth. And I says, well, as a matter of fact, I do. And she said, I hate myself. And if you could see, it was like fireworks going off in my brain. It was like, well, what could somebody who says they hate themselves say to a little girl? She didn't like the way I looked. She didn't look the way I sounded. I better be smart because I'm not pretty, but then I had a learning disability. So then I was screwed both sides. So it took me a long time to realize what my gift was. And each and every one of us has a gift. It's just uncovering what that is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So what is your gift? What is your superpower?
Well, lately I've been saying that my superpower is courage. But beyond that, which that is a superpower.
It is.
um, but I am an artist, as you can see here by my background. And so I incorporate the I believe that creativity is one of the gateways to your higher self. I also believe that we are all creative. So when you see my artwork, behind me, that doesn't mean that you have to know how to draw a beautiful butterfly or use the paints or whatever. Like, we're creating all the time. We're creating children and bringing them up. We're creating dinner. We're, knitting sweaters and creating, like everything is a creation, actually. And so when we're in that creative mode, then we are in flow. So when you spend time out in your garden and the time just kind of seems to drift away, that is because you are in creative flow. So some people have the misconception that the word creativity means get out your paintbrushes, right? But I don't mean it in that way. That is art. Anyway, I am very passionate about these ideas because it has really been a tool for me through art, that and also journaling, writing. So I've been journaling for 30 years plus, actually. I mean, it started out as a kid as like a diary, really. But the more I would say constructive type of journaling really started 30 years ago when I read the book The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. And so I journal every morning, and that is really my time for me to do that inner work and some reflection. And so those things, so those things are really my superpowers, because they're my way of being able to see myself, work on myself, be in touch with my higher self. All of those things happen during my art and during journaling. And so I bring that into my programs to help.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, before you tell us about your program, I wanted to touch base because there's probably some people listening, we say it, very casually, being in touch with our higher self. How do you describe that to somebody who's in their head and haven't made that journey yet?
That's a really good question. um
Take your time.
yeah. To be honest, I'd probably start by saying that we have a lot going on in our mind. Is that truly who you are? And then I would probably do some breathing and or meditation exercise to try and help them connect on a deeper level and quiet that. I'd probably also talk to them about, do you really believe the stuff that's in your mind? Can you tell me about some of the stuff that's in your mind? And let's challenge it, right? And then obviously also reframe some of it. Because that's really important. And, I'm not out to try and convince people of specific religions. I've had many religions in my life, having grown up in a Jewish family with extended Christian family. Then my first husband was Buddhist. He passed away already. And now I'm living in a Muslim country. I have no issue with any religion. I am none of these specific religions. Me personally, I am a spiritual being, and I believe that I am an extension of source. And I do that because we all do that, and society does that, but actually I don't even believe that. I believe this, right? That, so that is that, that's I am directly connected to source. But I certainly wouldn't start there, because a lot of people will have difficulty with this as a starting point, right? So but we do usually get there, I believe, in the end. I know that for myself, I didn't start there. That's for sure. I didn't start. I was in my head, very much so in my head. I still catch myself in my head a lot. But I have learned to become the observer of that, which is helpful.
I'm with you 1,000%. I'm totally in flow with what you're saying, and that's why all the head nodding,
Yeah.
it's like, yep, I
Yeah.
get it. Well,
Yeah.
out of curiosity, so how'd you go from being in Canada to being in Malaysia?
I fell in love.
Ah.
Yeah. My mother was teaching in Malaysia long ago, and I ended up teaching as well in Malaysia just for a short time, for 6 months. But in that time, I crossed tracks with my husband. Now, that was literally like, I don't know, 20 something years ago now.
Wow.
But life kind of went full circle, because in between I ended up teaching in Thailand, and that my first marriage was with someone in Thailand, and he has already passed away, and so I needed to meet my husband now, way back when, in order for this, this crazy love story. But anyway, here I am in Malaysia, and we've been married for 10 years, and so yeah, this is a love story that got me here, and I love it here, and of course I miss some things about home, but I also embrace absolutely where I am. I mean, I'm 5 minutes from the sea, from the beach, from the sea, and it's nice weather all the time, and so and the people here are lovely, and I live in a wonderful neighborhood community feeling, and so it's great. Yeah, I love it.
I always find that fascinating, how we end up where we do, or even, sometimes it's just a stopping point, before we go on.
Well, certainly if you would have asked my 20-year-old self, there's no way that I could have even imagined at all that this would be my life. There's no way. So yeah, you never know, right? What path what's going to be presented, what's going to come before you. And I always think of those books when I was a kid. I forget exactly what they're called, but those books where you get to the end of the chapter and you have a couple choices, and it says that if
Yeah.
think if you want this, blah blah blah, you turn to page whatever. And I kind of think of life as a little bit like that. We come to those forks in the road, and we make some choice, and then okay, well then we go this way, right? And but I think that that's wonderful, because it really does mean that we are the designers of our life based on our choices. And isn't it a wonderful thing that we get to choose, that we get to
Right.
choose? Yeah.
and understand how, and to learn how to consciously choose.
Right. Yes, absolutely. Be intentional about our choices, right?
Exactly. Well, then that makes me curious if you want to tell us a little bit about your program.
So I run a 3-month program where I use the creative approach. Excuse me. I use the creative approach. I help women, sort of middle-aged women usually, really dive deep and reconnect with their self-worth and their true authentic self, so that they can step into the the leaders that they were meant to be. So, you know, they may not be exactly victims, but they need they want to feel seen, they want to feel appreciated, they want to feel heard. They want a bit more out of life. They want to create some impact or connect with their purpose and passion, and they're feeling a little lost. Yeah, so I do that, using my creative approach, with a lot of journaling and art activities to get in touch with those parts of ourselves. And I do that. I have a couple groups where women get together and learn from each other as well, which I do love that. But the 3-month program that I'm talking about is a one-on-one coaching where they have direct proximity with me, and it is not only is it my program, but it also then becomes custom tailored to the person that I'm working with.
That's
So
beautiful. I love that.
yeah.
Well, we'll be sure, just to let everybody know, we'll be sure to put her Leah's contact information above this interview, and she'll also put them in the comments so that you can connect with her. So before we go today, are there any last words of wisdom that you would like to share with us today?
Last words of wisdom.
Well, they're not the last, but
Well, no, I last for this, yes. I would encourage people to be intentional, to be intentional, intentional about the commitments that they make, to be intentional about the choices that they make, be intentional about the words that they use, and about catching the words and the thoughts and the things that go on up here, that go on in our busy minds, and take the time for a bit of self-love and self-care, and to do the things, because there are many different things that help to quiet this nonsense.
I love that. I love that. And it comes full circle in my mind too, because when you're talking about finding that creative outlet that speaks to you, whether it's art or journaling or cooking or sewing or gardening, whatever it is, you know.
Yeah, there's many, this is nothing about meditation is wonderful, but we don't all have to sit around doing this. If that's not your thing, that's okay. There's so many other ways to get in flow, to quiet this, and it can be through creative things that you just mentioned, can just be through breathing, can be yoga, it could be so many things, right? And so find the thing that works for you, where it becomes, not in a selfish way, but it becomes your time, and and you can quiet this and just be with yourself, and I believe with spirit.
I love that. Well, it's been such an honor to have you with us here today, Leah. Thank you so much for playing.
Yes, playing is good, right?
Right?
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.